All right, man, peace. So I'm on record as stating that Kevin Durant, he has the right to speak his mind whenever he feels like he needs to, but he oftentimes speaks a little bit too much, and he says things that more reveal his hypersensitive nature than shed any light on his character. Or maybe they do both. Either way, he decided that he was going to compare himself to Michael Jordan in regards to the scrutiny that he receives. He believes that he's under even higher scrutiny than Michael Jordan was. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
I don't know, Kevin Durant still paying attention to the critics who are still questioning everything from him leaving Oklahoma City to the way he's been playing. These are some pretty strong quotes that he gave Bleacher Report. Here's one. If I respond to this criticism, it's, no, you're sensitive. Shut up. You're supposed to take it. Everybody did it. Michael went through it. And I'm like, hold up. Michael Jordan did not go through this.
Look, let me stop her reading of his little blurb for a moment. Kevin Durant, he represents a generation of people that you'll oftentimes see on YouTube or different social media outlets who try to speak about Michael Jordan or that era. They often speak about things that they know very little about. And it's partly based in the incessant need to try to prove that their generation is as great as the previous generation, which is really no need to do. You'll validate or verify your greatness, due to your own exploits. There's no need to try to act as if you're knowledgeable in things that you're not knowledgeable in. I oftentimes see people speak about Michael Jordan and his exploits or the scenarios that he was in as if they know what they're talking about and they're only making shit up. Kevin Durant is one of those people. He does not really understand what Michael Jordan went through during his playing career or the scrutiny.
You know what Michael Jordan went through? Reading the paper, and it says, Michael Jordan was 7 for 33 the night before. How the bleep is he going to bounce back? That's criticism.
Well, how would Kevin Durant know that? Kevin Durant is 28 years old? When he was born, Michael Jordan was already in his fifth season? Kevin Durant does not really know what he's talking about. Kevin Durant's favorite player, by his own account, is LeBron James, because that's the era that he grew up in. Kevin Durant grew up with Kobe and Allen Iverson, and later on LeBron. That's what he grew up on. He didn't grow up on Michael Jordan. So he does not really understand the context of what he's trying to state or the message that he's trying to deliver. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. But as usual with Kevin Durant, he likes to speak without knowledge.
Criticism is not blank, you move to blank, you're a coward. That's not criticism. Criticism is calling me Mr. Unreliable and bouncing back the next night. Whew. T-Mac, that's a lot. Talk to me.
I'll say this. I think he's wrong in terms of saying MJ didn't go through this. MJ got killed. He did not win the championship up until his second season.
Thank you, sir. But, I would expect Tracy McGrady to understand that because Tracy McGrady's in the age group where he grew up watching Michael Jordan, and Tracy McGrady was an adolescent or really about to become an adolescent around the time that Michael started winning his championships. I know because I'm about the same age. So I understand exactly the scenario that Michael Jordan had to deal with in regard to his rise. Michael Jordan had books written about him like the Jordan Rules. You didn't have social media back then for people to talk bad about you. So guys wrote books. And I had the book, The Jordan Rules, that Sam Smith wrote about Jordan and his gambling and him punching teammates like Will Perdue and Bill Cartwright threatening to break his legs and stuff like that a lot of people don't know about. So Kevin Durant, he really does not know what he's talking about. The things that Michael Jordan went through in regards to the media trying to assassinate his character, in regards to gambling and things of that nature, Kevin would not even be able to deal with.
He really did. Now, it's magnified a lot. It's a lot more because we have all this social media, and I understand why KD feels this way. But
it's really not magnified due to social media. It's really magnified because Kevin Durant is a slave to Twitter. He's another Twitter victim who likes to run around on the internet to the point where he needs to make up fake accounts. So, yes, I understand that everybody now is a reporter. Everybody has a camera on their phone. People feel the need to try to speak on things that they really know nothing about. But no, it's not as bad for Kevin as it was for Michael Jordan. The only person that I would compare Michael Jordan to in regards to how they're treated by the media is LeBron James. Now, LeBron James' scrutiny is on a Jordan level.
But I never felt that the criticism would bother me because fans can't come out on the basketball court and do what I do. The critics can't come and do what I do. I'm a professional basketball player. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. I care less about what other people say. But obviously, it bothers him a little bit, and he has to respond to it.
This is why I stated in a previous video that there's no way that you can tell me that Kevin Durant is over the OKC thing. I don't believe that. He claims to be over it because he knows that to acknowledge that he's not over it, even though he's won a championship with Golden State, would make him look extremely weak. But Kevin Durant mentally is not a strong person. He's just not. He's not a strong dude, at least from a basketball perspective. He's not a strong person from a interpersonal perspective. He cares a little bit too much about whether people like him or not, which is why he cannot be an alpha. That's why he had to come to Golden State in the first place, which I give him credit. He analyzed his own personality, and I think that he realized that he would not be able to lead a team to a championship because he couldn't deal with that type of pressure and those type of responsibilities. So he realized he had to find a team that he can go to, where the overall culture of the team would not be too domineering, but also they would not ask him to be the alpha male.
For it to bother, look, he's human. For it to bother him,
okay.
That's okay.
Right.
Some people have thick skin, some people have thin skin. As long as it doesn't.
And let me say this, just because you respond back to something that somebody says does not mean that you're thin-skinned. What will make you thin-skinned is if you start to change your conduct or change your thoughts because of what other people thought about you. That's what makes you thin-skinned, not that you respond. As a human being, you're going to respond to certain things that people say. You're not going to be a robot. But what does make you thin-skinned is if you start to conform to the sentiments of other people just so that they can like you.
It doesn't affect your play, right?
That's what I was about to say. This is the part that I don't understand about KD. I love KD. I don't understand why it bothers him, in order to respond. Like, he plays well. It doesn't bother his play.
And then also understand, and I've touched on this already, KD being raised by a single mother, by a quote-unquote alpha female, that has definitely affected his ability to compartmentalize people and their mental attacks on him. One thing that Jordan could do is that he could compartmentalize. Now, as a child growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, when Michael was faced with the scrutiny, he dealt with it some strange ways also. But I think that he was able to compartmentalize it better because he was able to focus more, and being a natural alpha male, he was able to keep it, put it more to the side. The average male, even an alpha male, when he's being confronted with too much nonsense, after a while, he's just going to say, fuck all this. I'm moving on to make sure that I can create my own happiness. And that's one of the main reasons why I believe Jordan left basketball. You have a lot of people who think that he left because he was suspended, yada, yada, yada. But, when you're dealing with an alpha personality, they're not going to be too worried about what people are thinking about them. They're just going to try to create their own happiness. Now, Kevin Durant tried to create his own happiness by moving on to Golden State, but he's still worried about what people are thinking, and he's still worried about how he can get that love. He's still worried about how he can get that approval. Jordan never cared about the approval of others. That's why he went to baseball in the first place, because he knew that he would be criticized for doing it.
So why even talk to these people? You're still one of the best players in the world. You got a championship under your belt. Like, you've done everything a basketball player wants to do. Why respond to these?
Because he wants their love, T-Mac. That's why.
The thing that bothers me is not whether he's bothered or not. That's, again, he's human. Bothers me when he oversimplifies his history, saying that Michael Jordan.
Well, look, we already know history is not the strong point of most people today. History is not the strong point of most people today. So I don't even harp too much on it. I just make these videos to present history in its proper context.
Michael Jordan never had to go through this. Michael Jordan had to go to people saying he was gambling in the playoffs. Michael Jordan had to go to people saying he took a year off because of a suspension. Michael Jordan even had to go, and I hate to bring this up, but there were people who rumors, just whispers, that what happened to his father was because of him gambling.
Right.
That's awful stuff, right? And
absolutely. And that's not even going into, like I stated before, the book that was written trying to tear down his character, the book, The Jordan Rules. All right, which is a very good book, by the way. To me, when I read it, it didn't make me view Jordan any type of way because even as a child, I never held people on a pedestal or as an idol. But when you read the book, it tells you about how Jordan would address certain teammates in the locker room and attempt to make them tougher. How he treated teammates in practice. Like I said, he knocked out Will Perdue. Everybody talks about how he punched Steve Kerr. He knocked out Will Perdue. He'd get in fights with Horace Grant, Pippen. Almost get in a fight with Bill Cartwright. Bill Cartwright told him, if you disrespect me again, I'm going to break your legs. Things like that were in the book. Allegations. That book was the first book that really noted any form of gambling issue with Jordan. So all those things were brought to light. All of his laundry was put out there, and it was what it was. Even though he was offended, still at no point did he ever try to covet the favor of the media. Now, at one point, I believe it was in the 92 playoffs, also the 93 playoffs, he was only speaking to Ahmad Rashad. That was the only person that he would allow to interview him in the playoffs. And brothers from back in that era, if you remember, Jordan also took to wearing black shades in the interviews in the playoffs, I believe in 92 and 93, because he didn't want to deal with the media. That was his way of blocking them out. Like how LeBron says he goes 0 dark 30, Jordan did a lot of the same things back then, just in a different way.
And the thing about Kevin Durant when he complains like this is I always say, look at Michael Jordan. Look at his peers. Look at what Carmelo had to hear. Look at what LeBron had to hear. What even Chris Paul has to hear.
What LeBron went through when he left Cleveland was the worst thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like that. Ever. Nobody's ever gone through what LeBron went through when he left Cleveland.
Yeah. He hasn't even got the worst in his generation, let alone picking out Michael Jordan and some of these other guys who got it really, really bad. Look, at the top, it's always it's always windy up there.
Absolutely.
LeBron is one of the most scrutinized.
Like awful things have nothing to do with basketball.
Right.
Well, you remember what LeBron said when I sat down with him last month. He was like, oh, once LeBron and Dwayne Wade went through that return to Cleveland, he said, oh, KD was fine, Chris Paul will be fine, everyone will be fine. There's that perception around some of the guys in the league that, hey, Kevin Durant, you don't realize kind of what the other thing is. I will always say this when we say, why does he respond? Because someone asked him the question. These quotes always come out.
That is true, and that's definitely valid. That's valid. It would be even worse if he just unsolicited just started to go off on tangents about how he's under this great scrutiny. But, if you don't want people to tell you how they feel, then you shouldn't ask them the question. So that is definitely a valid statement. But, Katie also has to understand that sometimes people ask you a certain question so that they can perpetuate a narrative. So he has to be cognizant of those things.
Because he's doing an interview and someone asked him about it.
But you don't have to give that.
You don't have to give that.
Just do this, KD.
And even if you do answer, say but to say, oh, Michael Jordan never went through this, that's incorrect.
I agree.
I agree with you, Amin El Hassan, and that's why I stated I like this guy, Amin El Hassan's basketball takes. Most of the time he's on point. 98, 99% of the time he's on point.
But that's
incorrect when you say that.
I always say, why are guys talking about this? Because someone asked him and he was nice enough to give an answer. So I've always wanted to sort of make that point. But you're right, what that answer is, that's up to him. He can determine that.
But anyway, I just thought that this was a very interesting segment on Kevin Durant and his belief that he's placed under higher scrutiny than Michael Jordan was. I don't think that he really comprehends the level of scrutiny that Michael Jordan was under. KD will never understand that. No athlete, other than LeBron today, no American athlete is under anywhere near the scrutiny that Michael Jordan was under. And even though Jordan did not compete in the social media age, the print media really raked him over the coals his last 2 years in Chicago in the first title run. All right, and he went through a lot of things that a lot of people who didn't live through that era don't understand and don't know about. But anyway, peace.